Bob Tinnell. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me and doing this. I just wanted to say that it's an honor to meet someone who is, so successful and who has a current movie out. I can't say I've ever met someone of your stature. Could you just tell me, you're a West Virginia boy. How important was it for you to film right here in West Virginia?
I mean, it was, for me, I don't think the film would have resonated the way that it is resonating with critics and the way that it's resonating with viewers if I'd been forced to go shoot out of state, which unfortunately when we do the sequel I probably will have to, because the state took our tax credit the first day of shooting, so financing will be pretty difficult to do that here, which really stinks. But to shoot, I shot in my grandparents' house in Reevesville, West Virginia. I shot all over Fairmont and Reevesville and Marion County, and I was in, if someone had told me, when I was in film school that someday I would actually sleep in my own bed every night and get to make a movie with this wonderful cast here and not have to travel the way I've had to travel in the past, it would just seemed impossible to me.
Could you, you wrote the book initially, and then you went on to write the screenplay and direct it. How amazing for you was that to have been every step of the creative process? My first films, I certainly controlled the IP, the intellectual property. They were my ideas. They were usually adapted screenplays by someone else. I find more than ever now that if you don't control the underlying story or the underlying content, you really don't have a lot of leverage. And at the time that I created this property, I just wasn't getting directing jobs anymore. And so I just was loath to give it up. I kind of think it's going to be that way going forward. It's probably going to be me initiating something, and then seeing it through. So it seemed like pretty natural to me. Like, otherwise I don't think it was going to happen. So, speaking of early on in your career, you've done a lot of horror movies. How do you make the shift from horror movies to an attempt at a Christmas classic?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of the films I did that were supernatural or whatever were for kids, and some that I've written or haven't been produced, or like when I worked for George Romero, or worked with Stephen King, back in the day. I always loved horror. In fact, when I wrote this, my manager at the time was like really upset and discouraged me. He's like, "You can't do this, are you crazy?" But I just kind of like to think about just whatever I'm interested in at the time is what I would like to make a film about, or whether it's a short film or whether it's a a feature, a documentary, or whatever. I've gotten to the point I definitely need to be inspired and want to do it. I would take, I'm not saying I can't do, if somebody came along and said, "Hey, we want you to direct an episode of X." Well, yeah, I'm a professional filmmaker, I would do it. But for something that I'm going to really spend, 1 or 2 years of my life, I'd better be really vested in it.
And so could you tell me about the filming process? You and I were discussing earlier about you editing in Morgantown. Could you tell me start to finish? It was a 3-week shoot, right?
Well, it was technically, we shot 36 days. We shot 18 days with the principal cast. We shot 18 days of food and snow and Christmas decorations and special effects, and my team is really, really good, and we generated a lot of those effects in-house, or we would shoot things here, and then I had teams in Detroit, Louisiana, I'm trying to remember everywhere they were, working on different elements of the film. Even one guy was in Arkansas, adding Christmas lights, because you farm all this stuff out. So yeah, in January of 18, we started shooting principal photography, real hard and fast. And then we just kept going, I was still shooting stuff this past summer that I was adding in.
Could you tell me about your cast? Just how amazing were they? When I talked to Anthony, he talked about just them being the most humble and talented people. Would you concur?
Oh yeah, we were blessed. What I think happened that was so great was, one, we never dreamt we would get this cast. I mean, in fact, I was warned going in, like, you won't get these people. You won't get people of this caliber. But I thought, I said, well, we'll get a couple of interesting people to maybe play, Nana, or to play the uncles, or, but the kids will be nobodies, and that's okay. I was okay with it. And then the script, when the casting director in LA put out the script, and it got such great coverage and feedback, and the next thing you know, you're starting to pick up, Maddie Eisen from Jumanji, and Annabelle Comes Home, and Skylar Gisondo from Righteous Gemstones, and Santa Clarita, and National Lampoon Vacation, and and it just kept like a domino. They just kept coming in, up to and including, Joey Pants and Paul Ben-Victor and Ray Abruzzo and Lynn Cohen. I mean, I was blown away that we got this cast.
Moving forward, you and I were discussing this a little earlier. What does the future hold for Bob Tinnell? I know you're still out promoting the movie right now, so it's kind of hard to get past that. But I guess first I should ask, how receptive have people been to your movie?
As of today, we have a Rotten Tomatoes score, I think, of 88%, and an audience Rotten Tomatoes score of 87, which is incredible. It's kind of spreading like wildfire. People really love it. I knew that Italian Americans were going to respond to it. I wasn't as confident that that how it would perform with others. I mean, I thought it would do okay, but I quite frankly wasn't prepared for this. And I Shout Studios, who is our distributor. I mean, they've already, in the first 4 days, the film had exceeded their expectations for like the first 3 weeks. So yeah, that's not bad. It's not bad. It's and I hope that we take advantage of it in the region. I think there's what they call cinetourism. I think there's an opportunity. People are going to want to, visit the locations in Marion County. That's the thing now. People like to do that. And in fact, when we have the Feast of the Seven Fishes Festival, the cooking school's December 13th, the festival's the 14th, and then there's going to be a screening at Tigert, I think, on the 15th. They're actually anticipating they're going to have maps and things ready, because they're anticipating people are like, okay, where's the store? Where's, whatever they want to go by and see it. It's just a thing people like to do.
Yeah, I've heard that that's become a huge part of tourism now. Like, people go to all the sites where Game of Thrones is filmed.
The Walking Dead.
Exactly.
It's huge.
So now you're part of that process,
Yeah.
So you did mention a sequel. Is that one of the things you're going to be working on moving forward?
Well, I was always intending to do a sequel. I mean, when it was just the comic strip, the idea originally was I wanted to do 5. Because what I like to think about is this is about a family going from being Italian to Italian American to American Italian to American. It's not a snapshot picture. I mean, it's a snapshot of the 80s, but the Italian American experience would be different in the 50s. It would be different in the Y2K. It would be different, in 1913. And so I don't want to do this just to cash in and do a sequel. I actually think that the conversation isn't done yet. And I think there's some interesting, dramatic things to be pursued at least one more time. So, I'm not saying it'll be my next film, because I have absolutely no idea what my next film is going to be. But, I'm fairly certain we're going to return to it.
Great. Those are all my questions. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I guess I'll probably get yelled at if I don't let people know that, they can find it on Comcast now on video on demand. It'll get pushed bigger come December 1st. It'll be on DVD and Blu-ray December 17th. It is continuing to expand in theaters. It's even going to play, I just find it crazy, it's not in a theater in West Virginia, but it's going to play in theaters in England. Go figure. But yeah, iTunes, Amazon, watch it, review it, vote for it. All of those things help. And I do think the film's helping us change the conversation a little bit about West Virginia, about who we are and how complex we are. And, not kind of just a stereotypical look at the state. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob Tinnell. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Norman. Appreciate you.
Thanks.